Welcome to the Practical Growth Podcast. I'm your host, E.B. Johnson, top writer on Medium.com, published author, and master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming. You've landed on the podcast that takes you on a journey into the heart of relationships and self-discovery. This is a must listen for those who are ready to overcome their toxic relationships and their toxic patterns. You can expect real talk, practical guidance, and raw and relatable guests that you'll be talking about for weeks. Let's get into it. Welcome back to an all-new episode of the Practical Growth Podcast. It's another great week here because we are talking about the nervous system. More specifically, we're talking about nervous system regulation, which is such an important topic for anyone who is recovering from trauma, whether you just have general trauma issues that you're trying to confront, maybe you have some generalized, dysfunction, dysregulation, or maybe you are on the more serious end of the spectrum and you're confronting PTSD or C-PTSD. That is who this episode is for today. Okay. Which, it's a lot of my clients. It's a lot of my readers. It's me, myself. We're going to be talking about the nervous system, how it's affected by trauma, and real practical techniques that we can use to soothe our nervous systems and find some kind of operative peace in our lives. Just before we jump in, though, here's some extra good news for all my readers and listeners out there. Applications. They are open for the summer session of my 8-week private coaching program. This is a one-on-one coaching program with me. It is an NLP delivered program. So this isn't some mambly-pambly, let's make you feel good, cozy-wozy program, okay? This is neuro-linguistic programming, which is focused on reprogramming your brain so that you can reprogram your beliefs and create new models of behavior for yourself. This is great for anyone who's recovering from narcissistic abuse, whether from that's a romantic relationship or even if it's from, family narcissistic abuse. It's also good for anyone who wants to build better relationship skills. Maybe you're trying to improve yourself professionally. NLP is great for all of that. So if you're interested in learning more, you can head over to therealebjohnson.com and then just tap working with me. And all the details will be right there and you can apply to work with me. You will have to be quick though. There's only 6 spots available in these sessions. I do like to make sure everyone can get the attention that they need from me. So you need to go and apply for that if you're ready to make some real change in your life, your relationships, and most of all, your core beliefs and the way you think. Again, if you want to apply for that, head over to therealebjohnson.com. Did you know that more than 70 million people worldwide live in a state of chronic nervous system dysfunction? This might be anxiety. It might be PTSD. It might be C-PTSD. And it's understandable, right, when you look at it. We lead high-stress lives. We live in a high-stress world. And then on top of that, most of us, millions more, are living with buried trauma. Maybe that's trauma from our relationships, trauma from our childhood, trauma from your career, whatever it is. So many of us are living with nervous systems that are completely maxed out, taxed out, revved overboard 24/7, 365. And when we don't pay attention to these states, these nervous states, these anxious states, when we don't find ways to calm ourselves, soothe ourselves, take ourselves down, we end up with an overtaxed nervous system that gets completely stuck in overdrive, right? It's that kind of fight or flight mode. You're just constantly looking for the next challenge, the next terrible thing that's going to happen to you. And so much of that boils down to trauma. And we're talking real trauma here, right? Not this internet buzzword that everybody now is like, anything they don't like is trauma. That's not what we're talking about here. We are talking about real emotional damage that exceeds your ability to understand or care for yourself, right? Trauma is an event, an experience that completely undermines our sense of self and our sense of safety. It is a moment of absolute terror and uncertainty in which you are unable to emotionally handle or even really comprehend the event, right? That is what we're talking about when we talk about trauma. And trauma, as you will absolutely have heard me say time and time again, is brain damage. It's nervous system damage. Okay, it literally changes the structures of your brain, which then changes the structures of your nervous system. It's all connected and it's all extremely complex. And that's because your nervous system is complex. So what you also need to keep in mind here today as we go through these 7 techniques that you can use to help yourself is that we're not just talking about this kind of surface level nervous system. This isn't just your brain and your spinal cord. What we're talking about today is everything. It's absolutely that central nervous system, but it's also your peripheral nervous system. Okay, we're talking about the autonomic nervous system. All of your subconscious functions dwell within this complex system. Okay, your respiration, your body temperature, your metabolism, your digestion, which is closely linked to things like anxiety and depression. And it also controls the production of stress hormones. Okay, your nervous system helps produce those stress hormones like cortisol, okay, which can lead to weight gain and anxiety and all kinds of other mental health issues. So for those who have had a lot of trauma in their lives, a lot of damage has been inflicted to these different parts of the nervous system. And what you can find yourself doing is living in a constant state of anxiety, of fear. Everything puts you on edge. You're completely drained. You can't find passion in things anymore. You don't know if you're depressed, but also you're terrified of everything. You might have a bad gut. You might be experiencing a lot of nausea, a lot of headaches. Okay. All of this can be linked to a nervous system that is completely out of control. And while there's absolutely things that we will need to do, you'll need to go and speak to, your therapists. You'll have to speak to doctors because medication and different types of therapy figure into these conditions. However, there are 7 tools that we can use to help us soothe, calm our nervous systems, especially when we get into those super high anxiety moments. And in no way are any of these 7 techniques a cure for anything. But that's not what we're looking for here, and that's never what I promise. What we're looking for here is improvement. What is something that I can do right now that I can do the next day and the next day and the next day that will help me, even if it's just a little bit? Because sometimes it's that just a little bit that's the difference between life and death when we're recovering. That is the primary reason that I want to give you these 7 tools today, okay? These are all tools that I use personally. I don't just give them to my clients. I don't just write about them. I don't just Google these things off the internet. All 7 of these techniques are techniques that I've been using for either months or years, especially in moments of panic. Many of them you have to build on over time. All of them have helped me in some way improve my life, whether that is improving my sleep, which as someone with anxiety, you would know what a struggle that can be, or just improving my mood throughout the day, or just improving one of those 3 p.m. panic attacks. That's what these are about. So none of these require any real crazy amount of money or skill or anything like that. They're simply tools that you can use to calm and soothe your nervous system. First, we have what I like to call the heavyweight tool. And this is all about using weight to help regulate your nervous system. If you're someone who really likes the gym, then good news, this can include weightlifting. That's very, very true. There have been studies, they did several studies, one of which was with Olympic athletes, and they discovered that weightlifting actually showed that athletes who engaged in weightlifting, they improved their body awareness, their sense of self, and their kind of possession of their own bodies. And if you're a trauma survivor out there, if you are someone with PTSD or C-PTSD, you know what it's like to dissociate, right? To pull away from your body, to not feel attached to it, to not feel aware or comfortable in your own skin. Well, it turns out that weightlifting in some people can actually help to improve that feeling, and it can make you feel more self-possessed. Also, what you can do in the same ballpark using weight is using things like weighted blankets. They also make weighted collars, weighted eye masks. Using weight has been shown to actually lower the heart rate. And it's also been shown to help improve the symptoms of ADHD in children. So it follows, although studies are still going, that it could also help in adults who are experiencing ADHD. I use weighted blankets at night to sleep, which have helped immensely. And it's incredible, even if in the afternoon you're feeling really kind of uncertain, uncomfortable in your own skin, these weighted blankets are really incredible. If you crawl underneath them and just allow yourself to relax for a little while, you can literally feel your heart rate go down. You can feel your breathing ease. You can feel your muscles relax. And it's because that feeling of the weight on you, it's very comforting. It's very soothing. And that's what we want to do when we attempt to regulate our nervous systems. The second technique that I like to use, and that I also really like to encourage my clients to use, I like to call burst and shaking. So this is all about movement and activity in the body. The burst movement is getting up, doing something burst explosive, like jumping jacks, or maybe you can go outside for a short, fast, explosive run. They are very quick, explosive, consuming physical actions that kind of snap your brain out of that panic position that it might be in if you've got a dysregulated nervous system. And the shaking is even more interesting. Now, this is something that I picked up from Dr. David Berceli, and he actually created what's called therapeutic or neurogenic tremoring, which is part of his trauma therapeutic release program. And basically, this is based on this observation that was made in the animal world that when their nervous systems become too stressed, right? Let's say they've just tried to run to escape a predator, or they've been scared, their nervous systems actually cause the body to shake in order to release that stress on the nervous system. And so there have been some studies that have shown that the same thing can also help trauma survivors as well. It's a gentle shaking, a gentle tremoring, and there's various ways in which you can do this. I highly recommend you look up neurogenic tremoring or therapeutic tremoring, because again, this is something that can really help break your brain out of that panic state and just kind of help you discharge that anxious energy a little bit. Now, I don't know who would not love this third technique, and we all probably do this to an extent, but therapeutic heat. Heat can absolutely be therapeutic to the nervous system. Even just simple things, right? This is all about keeping it simple. Just taking a hot bath has been shown to reduce inflammation, and it's also been shown in diabetic patients to help regulate blood sugar. So just taking a nice hot steamy bath, if you want to infuse it with some of your favorite herbs as well, like lavender and things like that, this can also help soothe and calm your nervous system. Even better, if you've got access to a sauna, that can increase your endorphins, which is a godsend when you're dealing with a dysfunctional, dysregulated nervous system. Here's one that I don't have access to a sauna, right? And I can go and take a hot bath, and that's great, but you can't take a hot bath every single time you've got a panic issue or anxiety, or you're slipping back into one of those places. So I use a heating pad. And there's actually been some interesting studies on this, but the one that pointed most prominently to the fact that heating pads could be used to kind of help calm yourself was one that they did with women who had just had cystoscopies, which is actually where they take a camera and they insert a camera into the bladder or the uterus. And they showed that when women in these that had these procedures, when they used a heating pad, there was a great reduction, not just of inflammation and things, but a great reduction of stress and the stress hormones that would otherwise have been associated with the healing and recovery process. So you can get just a little hot water bottle or one of the electric heating pads that you plug in, but just keeping that on your belly for a few minutes at a time, or even on your back, a huge comfort. And it can kind of just bring your heart rate down a little bit, bring you back down out of that really stressed state. Number 4, the inverse of therapeutic heat, therapeutic cold. And I think a lot of people got turned on to this one during the pandemic, when we saw a lot of people getting into like the natural swimming and going out during the winter and taking very brief dips in cold water and coming out. This all has to do with nervous system regulation. And it's absolutely true, and it works a dream. And this is why it works. This cold therapy targets stimulating the vagus nerve, okay? And your vagus nerve is arguably the most important nerve in your entire body. Your vagus nerve is a giant nerve, okay? And it runs from your brain all the way down through your face, down into your abdomen. And it connects your brain and digestive tract. And millions of little nerves branch off from this main vagus nerve. And all of these nerves come together to control your mood, your immune responses, your digestion, your respiration, and your heart rate. Where do you experience a lot of problems when you have nervous system dysregulation or dysfunction? Yeah. Messed up heart rate, hard time breathing, bad digestion, all of that. Sound familiar? When your vagus nerve isn't functioning properly, that's when you get completely out of whack. Your nervous system goes haywire. You will feel drained. You will feel depleted. You will feel dissociated, numb. And worst of all, that's where this chronic, overwhelming anxiousness can also come from. We need our vagus nerve to be functioning at optimum capacity in order for us to feel totally in possession of ourselves and resilient in order to face the challenges of life, to face the challenges of our emotions. And that's what this cold therapy is all about. There was a study done that showed even just taking ice and placing it on the neck for a few minutes at a time, placing it right along the sides of the neck and the face, showed significant drop in heart rate. You can also take the ice, you can place it in the center of your chest. You don't have to go running out into the North Sea. Cold therapy is all about using strategic cold on your body in order to stimulate that vagus nerve and to get your nervous system functioning properly again. Number 5 is one of the simplest tools, exercises that you can use to help regulate your nervous system. And it's so simple that sometimes people are confused by it, but we're going to break it down here. And this tool is called tracking. Okay? Tracking is all about sending signals to your nervous system. Sending deliberate signals to your nervous system that everything is okay and that it can wind down and it can stop panicking. And if you're someone who's been through a lot of therapy, then you've probably been introduced to this before. But basically, this is how tracking works. When you feel that anxiety building, those really challenging, uncomfortable emotions, you take yourself into a quiet space, ideally like your bedroom or a living room where you can close the door and everything's nice and quiet. You won't be interrupted. And you want to take a deep breath, sit down, take some deep breaths, 5 to 10 deep breaths. Then you want to slowly look around the room. Look at one item at a time. As your eyes land on the item, name that item out loud. So for example, I see a picture. I see a tree with green leaves. I see my computer. I see my lamp. As you move around the room and you identify these things in the current present state that they are in, you're saying to your brain, look, everything's fine. Everything's fine. And that is a very powerful message to send to your brain. The more you do this, the more powerful that message becomes. Number 6, I like to call this technique fatty focus. And if you're not already doing this, it's about to become one of your favorites. So your nervous system is basically coated in a certain kind of, let's say, fat. And over time, as your nervous system gets damaged, this covering gets eroded on your nerves. And when these coverings get eroded on your nerves, they basically stop working or signals get delayed. And that's where we get imbalances and depression and anxiety and all of these chronic issues. So fatty focus is all about feeding your body healthy fats that help to prevent this damage to the fatty coating that surrounds your nerves. And what you want to do here, no, you're not going to run out and buy a cheeseburger. You're focusing on those healthy fats. A lot of these can be found in the Mediterranean diets. So if you are really into some of those programs, then you know a lot about eating things like avocados, eating nuts, eating fatty fish. All of these fats are so good for your brain and they're so good for your nervous system. You have to think of it like a diet for your anxiety. And that is exactly what this is. Number 7, last but not least, this is one of the most powerful tools in any healer's toolbox. Mine, yours, anyone's, your therapist. And it's also the most controversial. But it's one you can't ever skip or avoid. At some point, if you are actually set on being healed, being happy, having an ideal relationship, whatever it is, you first have to use this tool, come hell or high water. And that tool is this: nothing. I'll say that one more time. Nothing. When you are living in a state of constant stress and anxiety, constant fight or flight, at some point, you just need to stop. Stop reading the books. Stop talking on the phone. Stop beating your head against the wall. Stop running. Stop doing. Stop working. Stop. Stop. Absolutely nothing is one of the most powerful things we can give our nervous system. It needs a rest, folks. It needs a rest. It cannot be bombarded 24/7, 365, especially when you got decades of childhood trauma piled up behind you that you haven't even faced yet. It can't handle that. It's not adamantium. It's just a tangle of little gelatinous nerves. So at some point, you gotta just back off. Don't watch the stressful TV. Don't work, don't answer the phone, don't talk to your girlfriend, don't talk to your boyfriend, don't text somebody, don't read the book, don't do the program, don't do the thing, do nothing. Let your body rest. Let your nerve system rest. And it's unavoidable. If you're going to get back to that place that you want to be in, you have to also know how to do nothing so that your nervous system can deactivate and reset itself. These 7 tools are in no way a cure, and no one's promising that. But imagine what getting 10% better sleep would do for you. Imagine what having a 10% better day a week would do for you. Just really imagine that. Imagine how much better you would feel if you could just make the smallest improvement yourself. You didn't have to wait for a therapist, a counselor, or a coach, or a doctor to tell you what to do. You could just take action and do something for yourself. That's what these tools are. And this is what I push for again and again and again. You have to become your own advocate. You have to become your own doctor, coach, therapist, counselor, all of those things to an extent. And that is what this whole episode is about. You can take charge of your healing. You have to. No one else will give it to you. Even if you've got $2 million to spend on therapy, they're not going to do anything for you, but give you words and potentially some medication. The work is you. Flipping the switches is you. And all of this nervous system regulation, this isn't just mumbly bumbly new age, yoga zen, feel good about yourself. This is science. This is fact. You can become your own advocate and learn the ins and outs of peace and how we as human beings achieve that peace from a physical, scientific, psychological perspective. Because here it is, right? And some of us are waking up to this, but if you haven't, here's the reality. Your body is very much a computer. And for the vast majority of us who are lucky enough to have what society considers to be normally abled bodies, we can learn to program ourselves in ways that allow us to improve our lives. And I'm not saying it's going to fix everything because the planet's on fire, right? We get it. But you can absolutely take charge of your little bubble right here, right now, and make your life better. And that starts with things like these nervous system regulation tools. But it expands with things like you taking action, you getting the therapist, you getting the coach, you reading the book, once you have gotten to a plateau that you can launch from. We expand these things when we act on them. Okay? And that's what NLP coaching is about, which is what I offer. It's for those who are in the action phase of their journey, who are ready to go next level, who are ready to stop making excuses, stop accepting excuses, and who are ready to make it all happen for themselves. You have to focus on reprogramming your brain so that you can change your beliefs, so that you can create new behaviors for yourself. And that is where manifestation starts after all of that. If you want to learn more, you can head over to therealebjohnson.com to find out about getting coached by me. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you loved it, why not leave a 5-star review? I'm currently giving away a free ebook to everyone who leaves a 5-star review of the podcast on Apple Podcasts. All you have to do is leave your review, take a screenshot of it for me when it goes live, and then send it to me. You can do that on Instagram, you can do it on TikTok, you can just email it. As soon as I see that screenshot, you got a free ebook. And what's better than free? I don't know. I don't know anything better than free. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you took something away from this that's been able to help you improve your life. Until next week, keep moving forward. Bye-bye.